Don't give up. These 4 pains are proof Jesus is still working. Pain is a strange teacher. It walks beside you quietly, yet it leaves marks that nothing else can. It tears down what you thought you needed, only to reveal what you were truly made of. When everything starts falling apart, it's easy to think that God has abandoned you. But what if the breaking was actually His way of building you? There are seasons when you pray and nothing changes. You fast, you cry, you plead, and heaven feels silent. You look around, and everyone else seems to be moving forward while you're standing still. Those moments shake you. They make you question your faith, your worth, your future. But in the silence of those unanswered prayers, God is speaking louder than you think. He's not ignoring you. He's preparing you. Sometimes God doesn't calm the storm because He's using it to strengthen your spirit. The pain you're facing isn't random. It's not meaningless. There's a reason behind the rejection, behind the delay, behind the loneliness. You may not see it yet, but every heartbreak, every closed door, every lonely night is shaping something divine within you. God often hides His greatest work in the most painful seasons. He doesn't always announce what He's doing. He refines you quietly, away from the spotlight. Like a seed buried in the dark, you might feel forgotten, but that's exactly where new life begins. Growth happens underground, in hidden soil, long before it ever breaks the surface. So when life hurts, it doesn't mean God is punishing you. It means He's positioning you. The pain is not proof of His absence. It's evidence of His preparation. You may be crying now, but heaven is still writing your story. God is rearranging everything you thought you lost into something far greater than what you imagined. You are not being broken to be destroyed. You are being broken to be rebuilt stronger. And in that process, God is shaping a version of you that can carry what He's planned for your future. There are 4 kinds of pain that reveal this divine preparation. 4 moments that hurt deeply, yet hold the fingerprints of a faithful God. If you're walking through one of them right now, don't give up. What you're feeling isn't the end. It's the beginning of something greater. 1. The pain of isolation. When God pulls you away to pull you closer. Isolation can feel like punishment. One day you're surrounded by people, by noise, by motion, and the next it's quiet. The calls stop, the plans fade. The room feels emptier than before. You wonder what you did wrong. You wonder why God allowed this distance, why the people you thought would stay suddenly drift away. But listen, sometimes God has to separate you to speak to you. When you're constantly surrounded, you can't always hear His whisper. He removes the distractions not to wound you, but to awaken you. Because there are lessons you can't learn in the crowd. There are revelations that only come in the quiet. God isn't trying to isolate you to break you down. He's pulling you away so He can rebuild you from the inside out. Look at Joseph. He was thrown into a pit, betrayed by his brothers, and left in a prison cell. But that solitude wasn't the end. It was the setup. In the darkness of isolation, God was shaping Joseph's heart to carry the weight of the palace. Before he could lead a nation, he had to learn how to depend on God alone. And maybe that's what God is doing in your life. You've been praying for answers, for connection, for help, but instead, He's quieted the room. He's teaching you that His presence is enough. When people walk away, He stays. When the world stops clapping, He still calls your name. There's a sacred kind of loneliness that every believer must face, not because God is cruel, but because intimacy requires separation. He's pulling you out of the noise so that your roots can go deeper. You don't build depth in comfort, you build it in stillness. Think about David in the wilderness. He wasn't crowned king in a castle. He was anointed while watching sheep, alone on the hillside. Those nights under the stars weren't wasted. They were worship. In isolation, David learned how to talk to God, how to listen, how to fight battles that no one else saw. That's where his strength was born. You might feel hidden right now, forgotten, misunderstood, but hidden doesn't mean abandoned. Hidden means protected. When God hides you, it's because He's working on you. He's preparing you for an unveiling that demands maturity, humility, and spiritual fire. If He showed you too soon, the pressure would crush you. So He conceals you until you're ready to carry the weight of the calling. Isolation is not the enemy, it's the incubator. It's where God plants seeds that can't survive in public yet. It's where you learn that your value isn't in who applauds you, but in who sustains you. So don't curse the quiet. Don't despise the distance. God is closer in your solitude than He ever was in your crowd. This is where he transforms you from someone who seeks validation into someone who walks in revelation. The pain of isolation is real, but so is the purpose behind it. When you finally step out of this season, you'll realize it wasn't loneliness, it was divine preparation. God didn't separate you to leave you alone, he separated you to make you his. 2. The pain of delay. When God slows you down to strengthen you, delay is one of the hardest things to endure when you're believing for a miracle. You can handle the fight if you know when it ends. But when God asks you to wait without a timeline, it tests every part of your faith. The waiting feels endless. You start wondering if you missed your moment, if the promise expired, or if maybe God changed his mind. But he hasn't. He's not denying you. He's developing you. Sometimes God puts your dreams on pause because your heart isn't ready to carry the weight of what you prayed for. You see the promise, but he sees the process, and the process is where strength is built. Faith is not proven when everything happens fast. Faith is proven when nothing moves and you still choose to believe. Look at Abraham. God told him he would be the father of many nations, but decades passed before Isaac was born. Can you imagine the waiting? The nights staring at the stars, remembering God's words and wondering when they would come true. The delay didn't mean God forgot. It meant he was forming something eternal in Abraham's spirit. That's what God does in the waiting. He teaches you patience, endurance, and trust that isn't built on sight. He's stretching your faith so that when the blessing comes, you won't worship the gift, you'll worship the giver. Because the truth is, it's not hard for God to fulfill a promise. What takes time is preparing you for it. You may think you're ready now, but sometimes the delay reveals what still needs healing. God won't let you step into something meant for your future while you're still carrying the wounds of your past. So he slows you down. He makes you wait until your heart aligns with his will, until your motives are pure, until you're strong enough to hold what he's giving. Waiting seasons are not wasted seasons. They're classrooms for the soul. This is where faith graduates from theory to reality. It's in the hallway between prayers and answers that your worship becomes real. It's where you learn to say, even if you don't move yet, I'll still trust you. Remember the disciples in the boat during the storm. Jesus was asleep. The waves were crashing. Fear was rising, and it felt like he didn't care. But he wasn't ignoring them. He was testing their trust. When he finally spoke, the storm obeyed. That's what happens when you wait on God. He may not move according to your schedule, but when he does, everything shifts at once. Delay doesn't mean defeat. Sometimes God slows you down because he's protecting you from things you can't see yet. That closed door, it wasn't rejection, it was mercy. That unanswered prayer, it wasn't silence, it was strategy. So if you feel stuck right now, if it feels like nothing is moving, don't give up. You are not behind. You are in divine alignment with God's perfect timing. He's not late. He's preparing the stage. One day the waiting will make sense. You'll look back and realize that what felt like delay was really grace in disguise. God wasn't holding you back, he was holding you together. And when the time is right, what you've been praying for will arrive, not as something fragile, but as something that can last. Don't rush what God is still refining. The waiting isn't empty, it's full of his work. And when he finally says now, you'll understand why he made you wait. 3. The pain of loss. When God removes what you love to restore what you need. Loss changes you. It doesn't ask permission, it just comes. One moment, everything feels secure, and the next it's gone. The relationship ends, the opportunity closes, the dream collapses, and you're left standing in the wreckage, asking God, why did you let this happen? There's a kind of pain that doesn't just bruise the heart, it breaks it, and when it breaks, it feels like God walked away. But friend, he hasn't. Sometimes he allows what you love to leave, so he can return what your soul truly needs. We cling to things, people, and seasons that were only meant to be temporary. We make homes in places God meant for us to pass through, and when he starts pulling things away, it feels cruel until you realize he's protecting you from smaller versions of yourself. Think about Job. In a single stretch of days, he lost everything: his family, his health, his wealth. The pain was unbearable. But even in his mourning, he said, "The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Job didn't understand the reason, but he trusted the Redeemer. And because of that faith, God restored more than he ever lost. Loss often exposes where our trust really lies. It's easy to praise God when things are growing, but what about when everything withers? When the door closes, can you still believe he's good? When the person leaves, can you still believe he's enough? You see, sometimes God has to remove what's comfortable to reveal what's eternal. He takes away what you thought you couldn't live without, so you'll finally realize that he's the one you can't live without. Ruth knew that pain. She buried her husband, left her home, and walked into an unknown land with nothing but faith. But in that emptiness, God was already orchestrating redemption, because in Bethlehem she would meet Boaz, and through her lineage the Messiah would one day come. What she thought was the end was actually the beginning of something world-changing. That's what loss does. It shakes the ground so new roots can grow. It tears apart the false sense of control we cling to, and teaches us surrender. God uses the pain of loss to make space for divine restoration. What's taken may hurt, but what's coming will heal. If you've lost something recently, a person, a dream, a sense of direction, please hear this. God wastes nothing. Every tear you've cried is counted. Every night you've spent wondering why is known. You are not forgotten in your grief. You are being held in it. Sometimes God subtracts before he multiplies. He prunes the branches that don't bear fruit, not because he's punishing the tree, but because he wants it to grow stronger. The loss wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to deliver you. You might not see the beauty yet, but one day you will. You'll look back and realize the things you lost weren't keeping you safe. They were keeping you small. And when God restores, he never returns things as they were. He makes them new, stronger, deeper, and better than before. So yes, loss hurts, but it also heals. It clears the ground for miracles you didn't know you needed. And even when it feels like everything is gone, the truth remains. God is still here, still faithful, still working, because what he takes away in pain, he always returns in purpose. 4. The pain of growth. When God stretches you beyond your comfort to prepare you for calling. Growth doesn't feel glorious when you're in it. It hurts. It stretches you in places you didn't even know could ache. You start praying for breakthrough, and instead you feel pressure. You ask for elevation, and God hands you endurance. You wanted expansion, but he starts with excavation. That's because growth begins where comfort ends. God can't transform you without first shaking what's familiar. The comfort zone feels safe, but nothing significant ever grows there. So he begins to stretch you, your patience, your faith, your capacity. And it's in that stretch where your destiny starts to take shape. Think of Moses. He spent 40 years in the desert tending sheep, far away from the palace he once knew. That wilderness wasn't punishment, it was preparation. God was stretching his humility, his courage, his obedience, because before Moses could stand before Pharaoh, he had to learn how to stand alone with God. Growth demands change, and change is painful. God starts pulling things out of you that no longer fit where you're going. Old habits, wrong mindsets, toxic relationships, they all start to fall away. And sometimes it feels like you're losing yourself. But really, you're becoming who you were always meant to be. The stretching feels cruel until you realize it's sacred. A seed has to break before it grows. The potter has to press the clay before it becomes a vessel. The fire has to burn before gold shines. Pain isn't the opposite of progress, it's the evidence of it. When God starts stretching you, it means he's trusting you with more. More faith, more influence, more purpose. But to carry more, you must become more. That's why he allows the discomfort. He's enlarging your spirit to match the size of your calling. Peter knew this pain. He thought he was ready for ministry, ready to follow Jesus anywhere. Yet when the test came, he denied the very one he loved. That failure crushed him, but it also refined him. The man who wept in shame became the preacher who led thousands to salvation. God didn't waste his failure. He used it to forge his fire. So don't run from the stretching. Don't fight the process. Every tear, every struggle, every ache is producing something eternal inside you. Growth is God's way of preparing you for what you prayed for. He's strengthening your character before he increases your influence. When you pray for God to use you, he answers by shaping you. And shaping isn't soft, it's sharp. It cuts, molds, and refines until what remains looks more like Jesus. That's why the process hurts so much, because transformation always costs comfort. You might feel like you're being pushed past your limit, but you're not breaking down, you're breaking through. The pain you feel is the tension between where you are and where God is taking you. It's the pressure of becoming, and when it's over, when the season shifts, you'll realize that every struggle was necessary. Every stretch had meaning, because without the pain of growth, you'd never be able to carry the promise of greatness. So breathe through the stretch, trust the potter's hands. The same God who allowed the pain is the one perfecting the purpose behind it. And when the growing stops hurting, you'll step into the very thing you once prayed for, stronger, wiser, and ready. Conclusion. Pain has a way of convincing you that God has left. But the truth is, he's never been closer than when you're broken. You may not see him working, you may not feel him moving, but he's there, right in the middle of your tears, right in the silence of your prayers, right in the ache of your waiting. Every wound you've walked through, every heartbreak you've survived, every night you cried and didn't understand, it all mattered. None of it was wasted. The pain was the process, and the process was the preparation. God never promised an easy journey, but he promised a purposeful one. Every scar is proof that you made it through what was meant to destroy you. And not only did you survive, you were transformed. The version of you that's emerging from this season is stronger, wiser, humbler, and more anointed than before. The isolation taught you how to hear his voice. The delay taught you how to trust his timing. The loss taught you how to cling to his presence. And the growth taught you how to endure the weight of his calling. You've been refined, not rejected, stretched, not shattered, broken, but beautifully rebuilt. What you thought was punishment was actually promotion. What looked like rejection was really redirection. God wasn't holding you back, he was holding you together. And now every piece of your story fits perfectly into the tapestry of his greater plan. So lift your head. The season that once crushed you is the same season that crowned you with strength. The tears that once blinded you are now watering the ground for your next harvest. The pain that once silenced you is becoming the platform for your testimony. You may still feel the sting of what you've been through, but don't forget this: pain is temporary, purpose is eternal. You are walking proof that God can turn ashes into beauty, despair into hope, and weakness into glory. If you're still in the middle of the storm, don't lose heart. The same God who started the work will finish it. The same God who allowed the breaking will bring the blessing. The same God who let you fall apart is the one putting you back together, piece by piece, stronger than before, softer in heart, and steadier in faith. And one day you'll thank him for the pain you once begged him to take away, because that pain will be the reason you found your purpose. So keep trusting, keep walking, keep believing, because these pains aren't proof that God has forgotten you. They're proof that he's preparing you for greater things. And when the fullness of his plan unfolds, you'll see that every tear had meaning, every delay had purpose, and every trial was shaping you for the glory that's coming next.